Bill, tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came from and how long you've been here and what it's like being a policeman here.
I'm working on my 13th year here in October. It'll be 13 years. And prior to that, I was in Springfield, Illinois, which middle of the cornfields.
Right.
You know, we had one lake, 6,000 acres right there.
Waterfront property is expensive there, too.
Yeah, it was. I actually had a house that was on the other side of the road from the lake, and it was, I thought that was heaven. And then I found Nantucket, you know. And so I've been here it'll be going on 13 years. And it's different. You know, the city was 115,000, 117,000. We had all the big city problems. We had the gangs, we had the drugs, we had the street wars, we had things like that. It was a capital city. We had the protests. We had all kinds of things that went with that. You come here and we
How big of a police department do you have there?
It's just 298 officers, 300 officers essentially. And I was...
and here you have?
Here I have 36,
Right.
including me.
Right.
So, and then we bring on another 32 seasonal workers. So it's just we deal with the same issues, only a much smaller scale, but we have a much smaller force to deal with it. The beautiful thing about Nantucket is an officer in Nantucket gets to do a lot of different things. In the city like that, you tend to be compartmentalized. You know, you're a traffic officer, you're a crime response officer, you're a beat officer, you're a crime prevention officer. You know, and you got into a compartment, and
you can't really have a policeman here saying that's not my job.
Exactly. And these guys, every person on our department wears 2 or 3 hats, and you know they've done that since day one.
Are you still having? Well, go ahead. What's it like? I mean, is it the kind of thing that? I hope you're glad you made the choice to come here.
Yeah, no question about that.
Is it something that you feel that in the future this kind of job can be developed from within the department the way it used to be, or do you think it's something that has to be?
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, I spent a lot of time and effort training now with my staff, trying to develop their skills so that they can move up to the top. I mean, the ultimate goal for me would be to have my replacement come from within the ranks of the Nantucket Police Department, because they know the department, they know how it works, and the way we're working keeps moving forward in the future. You know, it then becomes up to out of my hands at the time when I ultimately retire as to what happens next. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
But you know, when I got here, I had, I think, 3 sergeants. There was not on the midnight shift, the most senior person working was a patrolman with 1 year on the job. I didn't sleep very well when I first got here, knowing that, you know, I knew that they didn't know enough to recognize when things were going bad. But they tried hard, they worked hard, they did a lot. We worked first to develop the supervisory staff. Now we have at least one sergeant on duty 24/7 that is trained, that's been to some advanced supervision schools. We have a command staff now who has been to some of the senior leadership programs in the country, like the FBI Academy, the law enforcement executive development courses, things like that. And I think at the end of the day, Nantucket will have a hard time picking somebody from the outside that's more qualified than the people we have in our department.
You've had a recruiting program for new officers, and
Right.
we pay something to them for them to go to training school
Right.
and so on, and then they come here. They have an obligation to stay a certain length of time.
Correct.
Under that, but there has been in the past a problem with turnover among the younger people because it wasn't exciting enough or whatever, housing, whatever.
Well,
is that still true?
I can tell you this: it never was, because it wasn't exciting enough. Okay, and
I stand corrected.
Yeah, what I actually hear when guys go to another department and without exception, we hear, "Gee, I really miss Nantucket because I used to be able to do a lot more things. Now I'm stuck out on Route 1 directing traffic every afternoon, you know, or this or that." But our problem here comes down to the housing. Now, it sometimes comes down to family support. I get young officers. as they're coming out of college, they're still comfortable with the dorm life, the single life. Everything's great out here for them. But when they find a significant other that they want to maybe share their life with, things get a little more challenging. There's the housing issue, but there's also employment issues for the spouses, things like that. So sometimes I lose them because of that. Now, if I have a young man who he wants to have a 3-bedroom Cape Cod with 2 acres of land, he's never going to have that in Nantucket. Okay, he will ultimately leave. But that's not the way it is all over the world. We do have a lot of people, officers that are committed to Nantucket. They want to be here, and they've found a way to make it work for them. And we just have to continue as a town to work hard on this housing issue, because that is ultimately, when you get a guy who is committed, that's ultimately the thing that's going to come down to make that decision. And the job, they're all satisfied with it. They like it. They get like I said, they get a lot of opportunities to do things they wouldn't if they're in a smaller town, or if they're in even a bigger town in up in the mainland. It's because things then become that compartmentalized. Now, if a guy's, when he gets into law enforcement, if his goal is to become a state trooper, there's nothing I'm going to be able to do or offer him to change his mind on that, and I wouldn't want to. But let me say one thing: what I really like about Nantucket versus where I was, the hiring process. We have this CSO program. We're not civil service here, so we have our own hiring procedures and everything. I really have an opportunity to work with these officers for 2, 3, 4, sometimes even 5 years as CSOs and reserve officers before we offer them a full-time job. We know what their personality's like, what their skills are
almost
like.
all of your new recruits come out of that core, that cadre?
Almost without exception. There's occasionally somebody great comes along with academy training that, but my experience has been our most successful and best opportunities generally come from within that cadre of officers. And they've already got 3 or 4 years. They like Nantucket. The challenge for them now is how do they make it work for them? After 3 or 4 years, sometimes it don't, but
In terms of when you hire somebody, you look obviously for certain personality traits and so forth. You get a feel of that when they're community service officers. But so first, what are you looking for? And second, has that changed over the years at all?
Oh, absolutely. We, quite frankly, look for personality. We want somebody who's comfortable talking to people. We want somebody who's not intimidated by people, but is not intimidating to people. We want somebody who's a problem solver. We want somebody who has demonstrated to us already. And our interview process, quite frankly, is to determine if they're going to be like a rigid, hardcore, just by the book ma'am type person, or if they're going to be somebody who's going to be a problem solver and come in and listen to the problem and look for various solutions and pursue that solution to the end. I think the officers I have, the personalities they have, I've never seen anything like it in where I came from. Where I came from, there was physical agility tests, and then there was a written test, and then they had a very brief interview that basically was, spell your last name and make sure you do it correctly. Every once in a while, I guess somebody'd fail, but so what you got was the brightest and the strongest, but many of those people, there was nothing about their personality that was involved in the process, and that I think was the missing part. We look at the personality. We can physically train them. We can educate them to the skills that they need to have, but I can't change their personality.
Yeah, exactly. Bill Pittman, thank you so much for this. It was great to see
good.
you, and good luck on the 4th of July.
Oh, yeah. We'll have a good time, I think.
I think you will.